Hello, how are you? I'm good, but I'm kind of melting into a pool on the floor because it's so hot here. Um, what better day to make a short kind of tutorial on using the Teletype with the Disting NT? Specifically, the sliced sample player algorithm and the Curbinator with the purpose of making tracker-inspired drum break chops. So that's what I'm going to do. One fun thing that Oz has just added is the ability to stream video from the Disting NT over its USB output. So da-da! That's really cool. Makes doing things like this a lot easier to show you what the NT is actually doing. And if you want to do this, so this is on the latest beta, but if you, in the future, when this gets added to a main sort of release branch, and you use something like OBS, which is what I'm using just now to pull in all these different sources, you just add a video capture device on OBS and then select the Disting NT when it's connected over the USB socket. It'll just appear as if by magic. Cool, I'm going to try and speedrun this so it's not super boring for you, because I think it's actually a pretty interesting sort of way of making this kind of music, and I think the NT is quite good at doing it. So first I'm going to add the sliced sample player. I'm not going to bother with record time, add, and then I'm going to point it to a break that I like. It's just this amen break, and then I want to check my routing. I'm not going to mess with clock and run stop, but I do need a trigger input. I'm going to set that to input 1, and I do need a slice input, which I'm going to set to input 2. Outputs 1 and 2 are all good. That's that part done. The next thing I need to do is press the sort of main menu button again, and you'll see that there's like a secret, so it's not secret, but there's an extra sample player menu. Click into that and do detect transients. Boom. That is going to give me 24 slices, hopefully, which is going to be helpful later. Next thing I want to do is add the Curbinator, which is an effect. And the reason for this is the Curbinator allows for reverse throws of audio buffer, as well as like stutter repeating ratchet kind of effect, and that's really helpful for making this type of music. Those parameters are in here. Later on in the video I'm going to use the CV mapping on the Disting NT to actually add for kind of what's the word, like I've lost it. The idea is that I don't want these effects on all the time. I want the CV to engage only when I want it to. So conditional, that's the word I was thinking of. Conditional CV. So input and output routing, this is important. We want to set the left input to output 1 and the right input to output 2, and we're going to just reuse those outputs as our kind of monitoring outputs. So basically slice algorithms coming in, it's going into the Curbinator, and it's coming back out output 1 and 2. Output mode I'm just going to have as add just now. That's fine, I'll explain why later. Mark input I'm going to set to CV input 2, which is going to be the one that we're using from the sliced break. That'll make sense later as well, but basically I'm just being lazy. I only want to use a couple of CV sources, so I'm going to reuse them for a couple of different purposes. Trigger input, I'm going to have that shared as the main kind of clock / trigger source coming out of Teletype, so input 1 for that. And that's basically all I need to do just now for the Curbinator. So now we need some CV and some trigs from Teletype. So trigger input first. Trigger output 1, input on the Disting. First let's set a metronome. I'm going to set quite fast, 140 ticks. That's not BPM. If we want to do BPM, how would we do that again? I can't even remember. You would need to use a lookup. Doesn't matter. We're not dealing with BPM here. We're in the Wild West. So I want a trigger input. Now, well, here it's basically just attacking that sample. Let's just make sure that our slices are going to detect properly. I suspect there's maybe a tiny there we go, that's better. I think there's maybe a little bug there. Anyway, that's fine. We can see our full sample now, and it's auto-detected 24 slices, which is perfect. Let me just mute that a minute because that's really annoying to hear over and over and over again. But I promise it'll be nicer later. So now we need CV. We need CV specifically that's going to span out in the way that the Disting NT deals with the sample slices, which is like 1 semitone per slice. We have 24 slices to pick from. So I'm going to create basically a sequence on the Teletype using its pattern, setting the pattern end to 15, pattern start at 0, or 1 to 16 in normal terms. There's a nice bit of code that we can do on Teletype for this, where we just do L0 15 P for pattern I, which is all the numbers from 0 to 15, and I'm just going to set them as a random number between, I'll just do random number between 0 and 23. And then when we look at the pattern, it's populated every index in that pattern with a random number between 0 and 23. Now, I know that the kick is going to be on the 0, or kind of, 0 volts or 0 semitones. So, and I want a few kicks spread out here. So I'm just going to add a couple there. And then I want to say CV1 is a semitone value of the number in the pattern next. So it's just going to step down the pattern P next is just this like kind of traditional step sequencer style thing. So it's just going to pick a value, pick an index, and then give me the value. Put that into CV input 2 on the Disting, and we'll see already up and on the screen that the slices are moving around now. And if I bring it up, and already it's quite nice because we've got some of those kicks repeating. So here, right at the end in the pattern, we've got 4 kicks in a row, which adds like a nice little bit of variety. But we want to do more than that. So what I'm going to do is, again in Teletype, I'm going to say every 16 ticks, I want the pattern to shuffle. So it's just going to take all the values and just sort of swap them about. So now we'll get like a sort of phrasing of 16, chops, and then every 16 it's going to change, and we can see that in the pattern. If we move up here, we'll see the numbers kind of jump around a little bit. So we're getting, 1 bar basically of a pattern, and then the pattern changes another bar, and it changes again, which is pretty cool. Mute that again, and then what we want to do now is think about this conditional effects that I was talking about earlier. So at the moment all the audio is passing into the carbonator, but we're not actually having any like the buffer itself's not affected in any way. We're just getting the audio coming in, it's landing in the buffer, and it's just going straight out again. We're not kind of manipulating the pitch, or we're not we're not changing the sort of source audio in any way, but which is good for some things, and specifically for this kind of tracker music, we're interested in like reversing the chops, as well as adding like stutters or like glitches to the audio. So let's go into the Carbonators menu, and I want to go to tweaks, and I want to, not tweaks, sorry, jumps. We want to go to jumps, and I want to do max stutter. I'm going to turn up to 6, minimum stutter 1, max jump, I'm going to just put to 6 as well, and min jump 1. Okay, and then what we want to do is if we just hover over reverse here, and then press the main menu button, so the sort of top small menu button, and then go into mappings, CV mappings, and let's select input 3, and we'll see it's on reverse already. It kind of remembers the last menu that you were on, which is super helpful, and just come out of it. So that's all fine. Now we need to actually think about the CV source that we're going to feed it. So I'm going out of CV2 on the Teletype and into input 3 on the Disting. And I'm going to create a little condition that basically just says, every so many ticks, create like a 1, and else just do 0. And we're going to use this kind of binary number as a way to set the condition. So I'm going to say every 9, A is 1. And then I'll say other, A is 0. And what I'll do is I'll go into I'll set script 1 into the metro, so that's always being ran. And then in script 1, I'm just going to say CV2. If, so using the ternary if A is true, let's add a V there just so that we're dealing with the voltage output. So CV2 in volts, if A is true, it's going to send 5 volts. If A is anything other than 1, or 0 in this case, send 0 volts. And we'll see now that CV2 is creating a little 5 volt jump every time, every 8 ticks, and otherwise it's just getting reset to 0. So if we bring up the sound, pretty nice. What we could do though, every 9 is a little bit too repetitive for my liking, so I'm going to say every random 9 to 15 ticks, and let's listen to that. Nice, bit less predictable, but still quite like spicy and nice. And we need to do the same thing for our other output here, and this output we're going to use to control the stuttering effect. So I'm going to go to out from CV3 on Teletype and into input 4 on the Disting, and just as before, we're going to go and hover over Stutter, go into mappings, CV mappings, bus. We're going to select input 4, and then we can come out of it, and then we need to create this similar kind of condition. So for here we could just do something a bit more rhythmic. I'm going to create a counter. It's going to count from 1 to 16, x plus 1 wrap x 0 15. So if we go into here, we can maybe see it just up here. X is counting from 1 to 16. This is good for using with Euclidean rhythms. It's going to be annoying, isn't it? The cable's in the way. So then I'm going to say b, the variable b is going to be just the kind of 1 or 0 output of a Euclidean rhythm. So I'm going to say 2 hits over 9 sort of beats. And then we're going to do that conditional CV again. So CV3 volts. If B is true, we want 5 volts, and if it's not, we want 0 volts. And now if we look here at CV3, we're getting a kind of rhythmic pulsing of 5 volts to 0 volts, kind of on and off. And if we also look on the screen, we'll see that the stutter is changing to this. So if we listen, really nice. And that's pretty much it. Like you could process this further with loads of effects. Again, like conditional stevieing. If you're getting into the mindset of how how a tracker works and what makes tracker music so like interesting is how meticulous the step programming is. So the more refined you are with that kind of idea, the more interesting you can get with these breaks. And again, we've not even looked at like repitching stuff up and down, which we could do in the Curbinator as well. It'd be quite interesting having, you know, certain drum hits get thrown to down an octave or whatever. You can create those like pitch runs like they do in trackers and stuff as well. Really fun. So I'm just kind of showing the basic skeleton of how I would go about making a track using something like this, but pretty cool. Hopefully that's useful and slightly interesting. I think these two are a very nice pairing, and yeah, the ability to show the screen like this in OBS, I think will really open up kind of demos and tutorials, and hopefully help demystify some parts of this module. So yeah, thanks for listening, and yeah, catch you later. Goodbye.